So I was married for 10 years. I got married young. I was 21. Already had a baby. He was 8 weeks old at our wedding. I remember feeling like my marriage was temporary from the beginning. And here we are 10 years later going through a divorce. He didn't really start this process. I guess it was more so me, because I was always looking for someone else because I didn't know how to be loved or how to accept love from somebody. And so while he was fighting for me, I was pushing him away. I left the good guy. I left the guy that everybody looks at and is like, that's a dad. That's a husband. That's how it's supposed to be. He did the dishes.
Excellent choice.
Most men want relationships. Most men want marriage. Who's leaving relationships? When they end up, women are walking out of the door 70 to 90% of the time. And who are they listening to? Women. How's that helping?
Well, according to the mainstream media, everything is going to be just fine. As I've said in more recent videos, the coalition of Western women is not one based on the values of the individual. It's a hive mind, a mob that insists on making everyone within it and everyone in its orbit as miserable as they possibly can be. The unicorn traditional females are shunned, mental illness is praised to the point of being a personality trait, and masculinity is deemed more dangerous than a full-grown grizzly, all for the fleeting false sense of liberation. It's such a pervasive ideology that it started to infect social sciences in recent decades. In this case, I'm specifically talking about how women portray marriage and the post-divorce journey. TV shows, nude broadcasts, and movies have all bent the knee to the strong female protagonist. Almost every plotline involves a woman in her mid-30s or 40s, looking around at the life she has with a husband and children, only to decide to leave it all behind for greater things. They do their absolute best to portray the man as a hostile obstacle while acting like the chick just crawled out of a Shawshank prison. Before we go on with the video, let me share the comment of the day. Shout out to Tony Task Force for sharing some golden rules. Rule 1, never date single moms. Rule 2, if in doubt, see Rule 1 above. Rule 3, revise Rules 1 and 2 regularly. This comment made me laugh, man. I like it. So, don't forget to reach out to my email to claim your $5. I know it's not a ton, guys, but I'm getting demonetized left and right, so, it's something little I can do for you guys. So, as always, I'll be picking one comment from each video. Could be the funniest, could be the most liked, or just one that stuck out to me. So, don't forget to leave a comment, and you could be tomorrow's winner. So, be sure to hit that like and sub button too, as the support means so much to me, y'all. So now, let's get right back into the video.
Embrace your masculinity.
Even though stories like this in this forum titled "A Middle-Aged Woman, Divorced, Lonely, and Full of Regrets," another example of why men are rethinking marriage, portray a more accurate tale. Normally, I pick apart a feminist article, but every now and then you just need to find an accurate marriage and divorce story, one that every Western man can understand. The author starts with, "Oh, let me tell you a tale, a cautionary one, mind you, about my wife's friend, Sarah. Poor Sarah, at 52, finds herself divorced with 2 kids, swimming in the deep end of loneliness. Just the other day, my wife met her for coffee, and Sarah poured out her soul. Now, I've seen my fair share of marital shipwrecks, but this one, boys, take notes."
Excuse me, I'll get my pen.
You see, Sarah's ex, Anthony, a decent enough chap, finally had enough after 17 years. He said she was a selfish, unloving wife. Now, I'm not one to gossip, but let's just say I wasn't surprised. Sarah always had a way of making everything about her. I remember one dinner we had with them, Anthony couldn't get a word in edgewise, and her birthday parties, more extravagant than a royal wedding. Anthony, just a minor footnote in his own life story. So here's the kicker. Sarah, now in the autumn of her life, is mystified why she can't find a man. I almost choked on my scotch when my wife told me. Men, let me lay it out for you. Women like Sarah are a dime a dozen. They take without giving, talk without listening. They're like sirens, luring you with beauty and charm, only to leave you wrecked on the rocks of their self-centeredness. Making everything about her? Check. Expensive desires? Check. Regretting most decisions? Check. Well, boys, we found ourselves another Western woman. The reason I brought up the false narrative at the start here is simple. Every fictional story about aging women thriving after divorce is based on a tired premise. A premise based on the surveys biased feminist statisticians conduct to reinforce the false narrative. They go out into the major cities of Paris, New York, LA, London, and others to ask middle-aged women if they are happier with the split. Then, to no surprise to anyone watching this, the middle-aged chicks do what they do on a regular basis on their respective social media platforms: lie. It's something that's common in Western society. You know, the whole trust all women message, the thing that got countless comedians canceled for making jokes on Twitter. These idiotic people who have the gall to call themselves scientists don't do any further investigation into the lives of these women. They just take their word for it. And yet, every time someone digs deeper, interviewing family members, friends, and peers, without fail, the life behind the curtain is far, far different. After all, they never stop to implement something like hoflation.
How much money is in your guys' bank account?
I got like 1,200.
Like 70K? Yeah.
70K? What you mean 70K?
What do you mean? My dad gave it to me.
You made me pay for all this shit and you got 70K?
You're my boyfriend. Why wouldn't you pay for my thing?
Well, I mean, if you got 70K, I mean, you should be paying for it.
Yeah, but usually guys supposed to pay for their things.
This is a serious problem. Like, I'm not even kidding. I paid for
What are you
dinner.
getting mad at me?
That was $400.
You're supposed to pay for my shit.
You got 70K?
You're my boyfriend. You're
Are
supposed to
you
pay for my shit.
kidding me? Yo, dude, stop.
It's not my fault you're broke. How is that my fault?
We're done now.
What do you mean we're done?
We're done now.
If you're gonna fucking scream at me, then leave.
If your wife can spend more than you make, like you need to make more money, 150 maybe to 250,000 a year would be comfortable for sure. The more the merrier.
300,000. Like, I guess if they made less than that, I feel like we wouldn't have the lifestyle I wanted, so I would work. Life's expensive.
Anywhere from 70 to 100K.
I would have to say 127.
$500,000. Is that bad?
Probably 150 to $250,000 a year.
Ideally, my husband needs to be making like 650,000.
The desire for crazy amounts of money is a typical part of the Western zeitgeist, but women have taken it to a whole other level. Whether it be wifely demands or deciding to have an unnatural connection to a career, the principle is pretty much the same. The author of this entry continues writing about Sarah, stating, Sarah's career was her universe. Her husband Anthony, more like an afterthought, a minor character in the grand play of her life. And the kids? Well, let's just say they knew their nanny better than they knew their mom. I remember one time at a dinner party, Sarah wouldn't stop talking about her latest business triumph. Anthony tried to chime in with something about his day, and she glanced at him like he just suggested they adopt a pet tarantula.
I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die.
Her priorities were as skewed as a Picasso painting. It's one thing to be driven, but Sarah took it to an extreme. She wore her neglect like a badge of honor, oblivious to the crumbling world around her. Anthony, a decent guy really, just faded into the background, his needs and desires collecting dust on the shelf of their life together. Now, the author of this piece is being nice to his friend here, and the guy was definitely simping his way into oblivion. Regardless, this is what Western women still don't seem to understand. Trying to be the man doesn't make you a man. A female breadwinner isn't a prize, it just removes value entirely. Riddle me this. If we were dragged back into the Stone Age and my female companion ran to me saying there was a saber-tooth outside of the cave, what would be the better scenario? A, grab my spear and tell her to get behind me while I fight for our lives, or B, scream and tell her that I might break a nail and that we should just wait and see if the beast goes away. According to the feminist media, B would be the optional answer because I'm embracing my feminine side and the salivating monster doesn't know any better. This romantic view of the world, encouraging role swapping, leaves women adrift, and the men now naive enough to take a different role are left to pick up the pieces. Even though, for guys like you and I, the message has never been more clear.
With women, you have to look at their pre-existing morals. If you tell a girl to do something and then she listens, fair enough, yeah? But it's better to choose one who's self-regulated. It's better to just choose one self-regulated. Don't feel like you can change her. See who she is before you, because it's her dad's job to raise her. If he did a good job, you're chilling. If he did a terrible job, you're screwed.
Moving on.
Wait, Brian, did you just say that you don't like challenges?
When it comes to dating, no, I don't.
Okay, I think you're just self-admitting and not being an alpha, because that's what makes some relationships more exciting and for the guys to keep pursuing, because if it was safe and stable, it kind of gets boring.
No.
That's how girls
Okay, first off, we're talking about dating. I absolutely engage in challenging things when it comes to my business, when it comes to all that. I'm not shying away from challenge. When it comes to dating, again, Proverbs 21:19, better to live in a desert than with a quarrelsome and nagging wife. I don't want my partner to be a challenge. I don't want to date a fence-sitter chick. I don't want to date a girl who's playing hard to get, because if you play hard to get, you quickly become hard to want.
And this is what women like Sarah fail to grasp. In this particular story, she considers herself a hero, at least initially. She's abandoned her post as a dutiful wife. She's never been there for her children. And by trying to take on the masculine role, she began to get tired, as most women do at the age of 30. Meanwhile, the husband was losing his mind in the background. You see, even when Sarah thought she was a positive challenge for being an absent workaholic, the damage started to permeate into every facet of the family's lives. I know, shocking, right? The author goes on to describe how this chick would cope with the boss babe persona. Over time, she began eating to cope with stress. She ended up gaining 40 damn pounds in just a few years, looking more like a dude. Then he writes this: Sarah, bless her, was as fiery as a chili pepper, and not in the good way. The woman had a temper that could make a saint swear. It was like walking on eggshells covered in hot sauce around her. Anthony, her husband, tried to weather the storm, but there's only so much a man can take before he starts looking for the nearest exit. I remember one barbecue we had, Anthony just mentioned how the steak was a tad overcooked, and whoosh, it was like he lit the fuse on a firework. Poor chap ended up apologizing for wanting his steak less like charcoal. But that was Sarah, a tempest in a teapot, ready to boil over at the slightest provocation. Listen up, lads. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that constant anger is a poison in any relationship. It's like living with a time bomb, never knowing when it'll go off next. That's no way to live. A man wants peace, not a perpetual war zone. Gentlemen, there it is, the modern marriage. With the push for both women and men to work, nothing positive has come out of it. Women look way worse with the unnatural burden, while the men foolish enough to walk into the trap find themselves locked in a nightmare of their own making. This is the real picture the propaganda doesn't want you to see. Women failing to meet the expectations of male-designed work environments, and then losing their minds in the process. But do women like this accept that this is a decision that conflicts with their biology? Of course not. The feminist message convinces these chicks that it is never their fault. Every woman is a princess. Every man is, as I said earlier, an obstacle. At the end of these marriages in the West, and at this point, we know they almost always do, women have found themselves caught in a hormonal riptide that these societies fail to acknowledge. Case and point.
The reason why I knew I needed to get a divorce was because I have a crystal clear memory of me having sex with my husband and thinking about this other guy, and me knowing in that moment I have to divorce him, because if I don't get out of this marriage, I'm going to cheat on him. I'm going to try to find this. And I know that's really up, but I didn't want to be a cheater.
It's not. That's happened to me too.
It wasn't the sex, it was the connection. But yes,
it was the realization.
100%.
Single women keep women single.
Ooh.
Because it's all throughout our culture. Go back to In Vogue, when they had that little lead in. What's going on, girl? It's so-and-so. Oh, you should just leave him. You shouldn't put up with it. Ain't no man worth all that. Ding dong. Oh, I gotta go. That's Kevin. See, when the woman got a man, it's always the single friends that tend to be on the outside telling that what you should and should not accept. But you ask her,
tell my wife to come in here.
Where's your wedding ring and your husband? So you get women who at the 1 minute, I love him because he does everything, but you got a woman in there. Yeah, he's trying to control. Girl, that's what this is. Oh, that's what that is. Oh, that's narcissistic.
Get my wife in here. Get my damn wife in here.
This is where I need to fill in the gaps. We all know what Sarah and all of these other women do when they start playing the blame game after they fail to play the game of life. They go out and ask other indoctrinated women what the next big step should be. We know for a fact that she started sharing her biased story, while the hive mind reinforced the delusions. We know for a fact that they told her the extra 40 pounds don't matter because they just watched Lizzo walk down the red carpet. And we know for a fact that they told her the husband and kids were holding her back, while she'd undoubtedly recalled the body count she racked up in the past. So now we get to the real aftermath of her decisions. Here we get an accurate and unedited glimpse into the life of a woman who chooses to divorce, based on the rhetoric that the mob has stuffed in her antidepressant-addled brain for months. Let's get into it. My wife's friend Sarah, she's a tale ripe with lessons, especially for you young fellows navigating the treacherous seas of modern dating. Now, Sarah's story takes a twist, a realization late in the game that her attitudes towards men were, frankly, her Achilles heel. You see, after her marriage capsized, Sarah was out there again, thinking she'd just waltz back into the dating scene, charm intact, suitors lining up. But here's the kicker. Quality men aren't low-hanging fruit, ripe for the picking. They have standards, expectations, and, let's be honest, options. Sarah, with her track record of anger and arrogance, found herself fishing in a pool of men who were, at best, subpar. Why? Because any man worth his salt can smell bitterness and hostility a mile away, and they steer clear of it. It's like trying to sell a car that looks good on the outside but has an engine filled with sludge. Sarah's problem was she thought she was the prize, and men should be grateful just for her attention, but that's not how it works. In the dance of dating, it's a two-way street. And there you have it, folks, the natural ending nobody in showbiz wants you to see. It's why I'm able to pull up clip after clip after clip of middle-aged Kool-Aid chicks who take up 2 seats on an airplane, crying about how the world isn't progressive enough to give them a second chance. The media never covers this kind of story because they don't want to dig too deep. They know that if they actually do their job well, the feminist narrative will fall apart like a cheap piece of clearance furniture. So they only scratch the surface, ask a bunch of truly miserable divorcees if they're happy, take the answer at face value, and post it on websites to coddle the Western female mind. But the story of Sarah is the real story. The tale of the generationally brainwashed modern woman who believes a world of escapism and feminine empowerment is a utopian dream, only to realize long after hitting that wall that there is nothing left for them on the other side. And if I'm being honest to Sarah and the rest of the mob, I really don't pity them. After all, for 100 years, a lot of decent men stuck around to give a fair amount of warnings. So, now the ball is in our court. Well, let's be honest, it always has been, but the message is clear.
Every woman that you've been with that has hurt you, used you, cheated on you, stolen from you, whatever it is, she showed you her red flags from day one. You chose to ignore them. So these women always, and myself included, we show men all of our red flags. Now we pick the man that allows us to get away with the most nonsense. A man with boundaries can only be with a woman who doesn't have many red flags because they're a perfect match. She doesn't do too much, he doesn't tolerate too much. They work really well. But a woman filled with red flags will only select a man who's filled with low self-esteem.
Men, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but don't fall into the camp of this husband, Anthony. Therein lies the path of the simp, and the real science doesn't lie. Women of the West will take advantage of that crap. It's in their nature. It's why we've all chosen to walk away for good. Women in the West don't have red flags. They are the red flag. They aren't better off than they were before, and divorce doesn't make them happier, but you're not going to convince them otherwise. Ignorance is institutionalized. Instead, focus on the journey that matters. Build something that you alone can step back and be proud of. In the end, you'll be happy you took a different route. It's the masculine guarantee.
As always, I wish you tremendous success. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember that if you leave the best comment, you'll get $5. Thank you so much for watching. If you found value in this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons, ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on future uploads, drop a comment, and share it. See you in the next video. Till next time.